The O'Reilly Factor is on. Tonight, the grand jury's decision on the shooting death of Michael Brown expected momentarily. We are live with the latest details on a case that has galvanized the nation. Caution, you are about to enter the no-spin zone. Factor begins right now. Hi, I'm Bill O'Reilly. Thanks for watching us tonight. We are live with breaking news awaiting the grand jury decision in the police shooting death of Michael Brown last August in Ferguson, Missouri. Reports are the authorities are bracing for confrontation. That's all we know at this hour. You may remember Mr. Brown and Officer Darren Wilson collided on a street after the teenager stole some items from a convenience store. Officer Wilson shot Brown 6 times, killing him. The grand jury, comprised of 3 African Americans and 9 whites, charged with deciding whether Officer Wilson broke the law or was defending himself. Some facts have leaked. Mr. Brown tested positive for marijuana at the time of the confrontation, and there was a physical altercation between the 2 men in the police car. Unfortunately, speculation has run wild, leading to violence, looting, and injury. We will not speculate here tonight, just the facts, as we await the grand jury announcement. We begin our coverage with Fox News correspondent Mike Tobin, who was on the scene in Ferguson, Missouri. So what's going on there right now, Mike?
Well, let's give you a look around, Bill. You can see we've got a crowd of demonstrators gathered here. I'd ballpark them at about 50 to 80 strong. You can see somebody there in the Guy Fawkes mask. If he's not part of the anonymous organization, he's dressed in the part. All the signs are out. People are demonstrating. This is directly across the street from the Ferguson PD. If we can take a look back across the street, one thing I want to point out is that the police, let's see if we do this without getting hit by a car, the police are keeping a pretty slow profile. Here's some more of the people with the Guy Fawkes masks. The police, there's about 10, maybe 8 to 10 of them right now. It doesn't mean there's not a large police force on standby. We've seen them back at the command center in large numbers. But in terms of coming out in front to where the demonstrators are, it seems right now, Bill, that they're trying to avoid having friction with the crowd of demonstrators that I'd call relatively small that's forming up.
Okay, now we understand there's more than 1,000 officers deployed, 100 FBI agents. So if the crowd is less than 100 right now, that should be enough to contain any kind of violence. I'm wondering about the masks. You know, here in New York City after 9/11, you were not allowed to wear masks, and you couldn't even have tinted windshields on your cars, still cannot here, because of terrorism and things like that. But they are allowing these demonstrators to wear masks, and you have asked them why they're wearing masks. What's the answer?
Well, they say that they're part of the defense. By the defense, meaning defense against an oppressive government. And that's really the position that they're taking, why they're covering up their face. A lot of that is the symbolism with Guy Fawkes and the association with the anonymous movement. A lot of the other people are just wearing the masks over their face so they can't be identified. Some will tell you it's just because it's cold. But again, in the summertime, we saw them with the masks over their face. It wasn't because it was cold.
Explain what the anonymous movement is to the audience, Mike.
Well, that's a little tough to put your finger on. They're a group that operates a lot over the internet. They're a group of hackers, and they say that they are fighting back against an oppressive government. You see a big presence with them on Twitter, particularly throughout this process. It's tough to describe exactly who they are, but they'll show up at the G8 movement. They'll show up at operations like this. They'll show up at different causes that they choose selectively.
When you ask them, they do freely admit they're part of the anonymous movement, correct? They're not hometown people. They're not from Ferguson or around that area. They come in from all over the place.
They certainly want to show that they're part of that anonymous movement. As far as people from out of town, what we've seen in the weeks leading up to this, or the days leading up to this, a lot of the people who have been arrested are people who were from out of town. We've got a lot of people who are showing up at these things saying that they are from out of town. As far as reports of people being bussed in from out of town, haven't seen the presence of buses, but we have seen clearly a lot of out-of-towners who come here just for the event itself.
Now, if you want to drive into Ferguson, I understand it's not easy, that the police have barriers and they have checkpoints and things like that. So you just can't show up with your car and just get out and cause trouble. Is that correct?
Oh, no, I think you can. If you want to get by the courthouse in Clayton, you can't get close to that right now because there are a lot of barriers up. There are a few barriers here. I mean, you can see one directly in front of the police department, but I think, again, the local authorities are trying to minimize the amount of friction that they have with the general public. So the traffic is coming and going freely on this avenue, and then West Florissant, where we saw all of the destruction over the summertime. We drove by there before. No slowdown of traffic at all.
The state police, the Missouri State Police, are they with the local Ferguson police?
We saw a big cadre, if you will, of the state police, a long convoy of state trooper cars, but they were back by the command center. In terms of coming out here to where the demonstrators are, it really seems that they're making an effort to keep a low profile. Where is the command center as opposed to where you are right now? As the crow flies, I'd put it about a half mile in that direction. It's in a big Target parking lot. And most of what the police are doing is in back of the shopping center there, again, trying to keep themselves out of the line of sight. They don't want to have this large police presence that kind of draws friction from people who may be looking to start trouble.
Anybody giving you a hard time or other reporters out there? Are the crowd hostile to the media?
So far, nothing. We have seen in the crowd that there are weapons. Some of them are decorative. Some of the kids in the anonymous gear, one at least we saw, has brass knuckles on the back of his backpack. But it was a Batman set of brass knuckles. It looked like it was more decorative than anything. That being said, some of the security people out here have identified more serious weapons like knives in the crowd.
The anonymous uniform, that's that white mask with the nose. Is that what you're talking about there?
Yeah, that's the Guy Fawkes mask, and you'd have to get into a lot of the history of it, but that's their association with the anonymous. And again, they're such a amorphous group, you can't really say who's a member, who's not a member, but you can see who's dressing the part when they wear that kind of stuff.
All right, Mike. We're going to check back in with Mike Tobin in a little while, but joining us from the Clayton Courthouse, where the grand jury sat for about 3 months, FNC correspondent Steve Harrigan. So what's the headline from your view, Steve?
Bill, we're about 10 miles away from Ferguson here in Clayton, and that's the courthouse behind me. The situation here, very calm, almost like a ghost town, if you can see behind me. At the same time, while there's only probably about 20 people, Clayton is about 80% white, and most of the people standing out here are white. There is heavy security presence. You have metal gates around that courthouse, and then a second row of plastic barriers. They're filled with water. We've seen a heavy police presence and National Guard, too, putting on uniforms. As far as the stores and the shops go, they've pretty much all shut down. The main street is dark. Streets are blocked off. So here, 10 miles away, there's almost no crowd presence, no demonstrators. The people here seem just pretty much amused by the media. They're walking behind us, trying to get in their shot, waving their cell phones. So no tension, no angry protesters, but a very heavy security presence here in case something might happen, Bill.
Now, where is the announcement going to be made? How is that going to come down?
The announcement is going to be made through press conference probably about 1 hour from now. They've taken media credentials. They're letting in just a small number of people, so it's going to be announced one way or the other at 9 o'clock. Even top officials claiming they don't know what's going to happen. And this grand jury now for the past 3 months has worked largely in secrecy. We know they've reached a decision, and that decision could range anywhere from letting the officer walk free to charges of involuntary manslaughter to even charges of murder. So a real mystery here, about 1 more hour, and this whole place, this whole region really afraid and been waiting now for 3 months for an answer, Bill.
Now, the announcement's going to be made in the courthouse where you are, in that facility?
That's what we expect. We expect it to be made there, go out immediately about 1 hour from now, and then we'll see what the reaction will be.
Sure.
There's been speculation that no matter which way it goes, there could be protests.
Well, if you got these anonymous idiots out there, they're going to try to do some damage. Now, are you going to be in? Did you get credentialed to be into the press conference?
We're going to have our producer, Ruth Ravi, inside. I'll be out here.
All right.
And keep in mind, when the numbers You know, throughout this protest, I think you've been pointing out really effectively, as far as numbers go, you can see 50 people on a television screen, and it can look like chaos. But the numbers we're seeing here are about 20. We've seen street protests the last 3 or 4 nights, numbers just 50 to 70 people.
Well,
so
yeah,
still a very small event so far.
Right. Let's hope it stays there. Steve, we appreciate it very much. And next on the rundown, Megyn Kelly, an attorney herself, has some thoughts on the Ferguson situation. The decision may break on her program at 9 Eastern Time. Right back with Miss Megyn.